Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Harmonious World. What you are listening to is our brand new theme tune, composed and performed by pianist Joe English. This episode of Harmonious World will feature my live conversation with Christian McBride, which took place a few weeks ago, an extraordinary bass player and 8 times Grammy Award winner. In fact, we discuss his Grammy Awards in my conversation. But I hope you enjoy listening in to the whole conversation with Christian McBride. And thank you once again to Joe English for my theme tune. Thank you so much for joining me. So my podcast is called Harmonious World.
Yes.
And the reason it's called that is because Quincy Jones once said, imagine what a harmonious world it would be if everyone shared a little of what they're good at.
Yes.
So this is about you sharing with me and my listeners what you're good at.
Well, this will be a very short conversation.
Thank you, Christian. So the band is called Christian McBride's New Dawn.
Uh-huh.
For a start, where does New Dawn come from?
Dawn is a slang terminology that is specific to the city of Philadelphia. I'm the only person in this band from Philadelphia, so it really doesn't mean much to anyone outside of Philadelphia. But where I come from, when you can't find the right word to describe something, it's a Dawn. It's just it's just another word for thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. I love Philadelphia, by the way. I went to John Coltrane's house.
Oh.
Long time ago. That was the most amazing thing.
You were right in the thick of Philadelphia.
Absolutely. It's just an amazing place. And
How long were you there?
Couple hours.
That was it?
But yeah. But his cousin, I don't know if she's even still around.
Cousin Mary.
She
just passed away about 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But she was amazing. She was talking about hearing him listening to the boring stuff that he used to play when he was practicing
right.
compared to what he played on stage.
Sure. Cousin Mary was wonderful.
Yeah.
She was such a sweet lady.
Yeah. And when I went, because I think it's been done up and stuff, but when I went, it was literally just a house. It was just a home.
Oh, nothing's changed.
Really?
They did make it a historic landmark, and they have like a nice, kind of mural type of thing in the house now, on the front of the house. But it probably looks the same as when you saw it.
Yeah, good, because that was amazing. Right, so that's what a Dawn is. Dawn is just a thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's it.
Right. Okay. Now I haven't got a series of questions, but the one question that occurred to me while I was listening to this recently was, did you decide you wanted to get together with these 3 other guys, and then just that happened, or did you set out for that chordless quartet sound?
No, I had something in mind specifically. My main working group leading up to this group had been my trio with Christian Sands on piano and Ulysses Owens Jr. on drums. And that band had a very distinct sound, very distinct personality. And we worked a lot. In fact, one of our last gigs together as a unit was here in London at Wigmore Hall in 2015. I think it was either May or June of 2015. And at the end of the year, I was about to start my annual 2-week residency at the Village Vanguard. And I needed a band for one of those 2 weeks. And it occurred to me that I had played the Vanguard with my trio, with my quintet, Inside Straight, which I still play with. And I also played there with my big band. And even though the Vanguard has their legendary Monday night big band, which was originally founded by Thad Jones and Mel Lewis, that's a very tight space for big bands to fit, And so I thought, this is the Village Vanguard. I have carte blanche to experiment with any kind of band I want to play with. What do I want to do? So I thought, what would be something that would be the polar opposite of my trio? A chordless group. So I started to think about the kind of energy, the kind of sound I was hearing. And Nasheet Waits has been one of my favorite drummers for a long, long time. I've known him for a long time, but before this group, we really only played together once. And so we always used to wonder how, we've been seeing each other and circling around each other in the same circles for 2 decades, and we only played one gig together.
Wow.
And so I asked him to join this group, and I didn't think he would be able to because he stays so busy playing with Jason Moran. But he said yes. Marcus Strickland is someone I'd been playing with in a number of different situations between, like, say, 2004 and 2015. And so he was a no-brainer. And when I spoke to a few trusted musicians, when I explained to them what I had in mind, they said, you might want to check out Josh Evans. He sounds like the kind of trumpet player you're looking for.
Right.
And they were correct.
Yeah.
And so this has now been my main working unit since December of 2015.
Wow. But this is the first time you brought that unit to the UK?
Correct. Yes, because I have not played with them at Wigmore Hall. Haven't played with them at Ronnie's. This is my first time. No. We did play Ronnie's in 2017 or 2018. Because I'm remembering the pictures.
Okay. And also, we've all got a gap, haven't we, of COVID gap. You forget about that 2 years. Man. Yeah. How was that for you?
It was. I have to say it worked out quite well because I really needed the rest badly. I did not want the rest under those particular circumstances, but it was really nice to be home and just sleep late for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
But on the flip side, obviously, we lost a lot of friends, and it was a very painful period in our lifetime to look back and think of all of the fear and illness and tragedy that struck a lot of people, many of whom we didn't get to say goodbye to. A lot of people just got sick so very quickly and they passed away. So that was the flip side, a very serious flip side.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, isn't it, that talking to people that we all experience different things, but what you keep coming back to is that the fact that it was such a tragedy for so many families, and it was awful.
Yes.
So I'm interested in, you talked about Marcus Strickland, and in fact I just saw him in the hotel lobby, and I didn't quite have the nerve to go up and say hello to him. I should have done.
Oh, you should have.
Yeah.
He's a beautiful guy.
Yeah, seems to be. He does tenor and bass clarinet in this.
Yes.
And they both have very different sounds. When he's playing bass clarinet, it's very more like he's next to you.
Yes.
And when he's playing tenor, it's more like he's next to Josh on the trumpet.
Well, I don't think that's a subconscious thing. That's just the way it works out physically.
Yeah, and I think and musically, I think as well.
Right. Yeah. Well, when he's playing the bass clarinet, I have to say that he's one of the few musicians that I know that is really dedicated to becoming a better bass clarinet player. Like, he really concentrates on the bass clarinet, developing his sound and his language and his technique, and he and Chris Potter
Yeah.
Two of the few people that I can think of who really focus on that instrument. Yeah. And Marcus Miller.
Well, Marcus,
yeah. Now, first time I saw Marcus Miller perform live, he's playing the bass, and then he puts that down and picks up the soprano saxophone and the bass clarinet. I was so confused.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Yeah.
You just do everything, don't you?
And some of those tracks where obviously, tracks them, but where he's on bass clarinet and he's doing the bass as well. That's insane,
That's right.
Isn't it? So I'm interested in the fact that you each compose tracks on this. So there are three sort of standards, but then there are five tracks that two of yours and one of everybody else's.
Right.
That's very kind of generous of you to let everybody else have a composing go.
A lot of people have said that to me, but I think that should be standard. If you have some great musicians who have something to say as composers as well as improvisers, why not record their music? I mean, that's what Miles Davis did. That's what Art Blakey did. All my favorite band leaders opened up their floor to all of their band members as composers.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of my favourite... Well, I really like Prime. I really like that. Marcus's... That's a great track.
Yeah, he recorded that before on one of his solo albums, also with a pianist group.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've said something about, everyone's in their prime. Well, maybe we're heading towards our prime. That's a sort of... there's an optimism there that we're all going to get a bit better.
Yes. I look at certain musicians like Charles Lloyd, who just turned 85.
Yeah.
Herbie Hancock, who's 83. Ron Carter, who's 86.
Yeah.
And these people are still at the top of their game, And really, Roy Haynes was at the top of his games until he was 86 or 87.
Yeah.
And he's still with us. He's 98 years old now. He obviously doesn't play in public anymore, but he still has like private sessions at his house.
Wow.
Yeah. So if at age, it would be too early to be in your prime at age 51.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So I had to give myself some room.
Yeah. One of the other things that I read about this group is them saying there's a balance between fun, having fun on the stand, having fun with the music, but actually that there's a real discipline there as well. And I watched the video. Now, which one was it? Head Bedlam. Mm-hmm. I watched the video of that. You are all absolutely focused.
Well, you have to be.
It's hard music, isn't it?
It is. But balance is key. I feel that the average layperson feels that jazz is always too serious.
Right.
People who are jazz connoisseurs take pride in the fact that it's so serious. We're anti-pop.
Right, yeah.
But, what do most people want to see?
Yeah.
They want to see musicians having fun and actually enjoying themselves. And that makes perfect sense, because if you're not having fun as a musician, how can you possibly expect someone watching you to enjoy it? Right. I don't want to see someone miserable.
No.
I don't want to pay my hard-earned money to come from work and to go pay to see someone be miserable.
Right.
Or maybe not miserable, but like so serious to the point where you have to use mind trickery to say, okay, they don't look like they're having fun, but apparently what they're creating is really beautiful. So I'm going to try my best to just concentrate on that. So now you have a whole group of people who are not jazz connoisseurs who leave the concert going, well, I think I liked it.
Right. Yeah.
So when I'm on stage, I have fun. there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. Even if I'm playing very serious music, just think about how fortunate you are that you get to travel the world, get paid, and play the music that you want to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. And I think Head Bedlam is a really interesting track because it sounds like, the beginning sounds like everything that people who hate jazz think that all jazz is.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's kind of that first couple of minutes.
It makes me curious that when people say, jazz is too crazy, it's too wild, it's too, undisciplined, and I think, what exactly are they listening to?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think late era John Coltrane or late 60s Ornette Coleman or the Art Ensemble of Chicago, that's generally not the kind of jazz most lay people come to.
No.
They probably come to Miles Davis or maybe some 70s fusion or something like that. So the opening to Head Bedlam was mostly about shock value.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Because it does. When I first heard it, I was a bit like, oh no, what have I got? What have I said I might like? And then once the groove gets started,
yes.
It's like, okay, so tell me how that thought process works.
Well, hopefully when people see the title of the song, they kind of wonder like, oh, well, what's that?
Yeah.
I'm giving you a warning.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
I feel that throughout the pandemic and kind of this oversaturation of information, that's the sounds that go on in our collective heads these days.
Right.
And so I just kind of wanted to grab the listener and say that there's a way to resolve this chaos in our brain, and that's to get to the groove,
That's really, because it's a metaphor, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I know that when it comes to me personally, people will never ever get used to hearing me play free jazz, and so what better way to shock them than to give them the most chaotic sound ever?
Because a lot of people will have heard, you doing the Nora Jones stuff,
and,
all of that, which is lovely. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great, but yeah. So you're deliberately.
Oh
going,
yeah. Oh yeah.
I love that. That's brilliant. What can people expect to hear at your shows at Ronnie's?
I don't like telling people what they should expect anymore. Okay. I used to do that.
Okay.
Because I'd rather people draw their own experience. But I will say that obviously we're going to play music from our 2 albums.
Yeah.
So some version of that.
And does it change from show to show?
Of course.
Good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of playing improvisational music.
Absolutely.
And a lot of factors come into play. The atmosphere of the club, the audience, the sound. They all have to, they all play. They all play a part in how the band operates from night to night.
Yeah, yeah. So when we started this conversation, we were talking about the fact that Sting wrote An Englishman in New York.
Right.
And is there a sort of significant version of
the reverse
Philadelphia dude? How you experience that, and like you say, because you can't. Americans expect certain things, and you ain't gonna get it in a lot of.
I know.
So, do you always have that composing head on?
I've been trying very hard to find the discipline to become a more prolific composer. Being around Chick Corea and playing with Chick for 25 plus years, and getting to watch him, I watched him write a whole symphony in maybe 6 weeks while we were in the middle of a tour. Wow. So he wrote music for the band that we were playing in, and then like after the show or during sound check, he'd write 8 bars here, 12 bars there, and I thought, how's he going to finish this, while we're in the middle of a tour? But he did, and he was always writing all the time. John Zorn is writing all the time. Pat Metheny writes all the time. Maria Schneider writes all the time. And I'm envious of people who just have that flow. Like Sting is like that. Right. One of my fondest memories of Sting is I was making one of my solo albums, Vertical Vision, in 2002. And at that time, I was touring with Sting in his touring band. And I figured I'd just take a shot in the dark. I said, hey, will you sing one track on my next album? And without hesitation, he said, absolutely, I would love to do it. And I realized that this was Sting. So I wanted to do something special. So I did something that I don't usually do. I composed a song, like with lyrics and everything. And I said, would you be okay with singing an original piece of mine? He said, of course. Give me the lyrics. If you could, make a demo so I can actually learn it, And so I sent him the lyric sheet. And I set him up. I got exactly what I wanted. Because I'm no lyricist. I don't really know what I'm doing,
But you know words.
Sure. So I gave him the lyrics and the demo, and he says, this song is really nice. Do you mind if I change a couple of words? Go for it. Do your thing. Do your thing. He said, there's a couple of phrases in here that I think might work better if, I'm just going to do and then when he got to the studio, he changed more than a few words. But you know what? Sting. It was so beautiful. It was so perfect. It was so poetic. And I'm just looking at these lyrics going, this is exactly the storyline that I'd written, but in his vision, And I thought, this is amazing. And he said, look, I'm just going to give you a little bit of advice when it comes to songwriting. Metaphor. Always use metaphor. I said, yes, sir.
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
He said, there's no more metaphor in popular music these days. It's depressing.
That's true, and it's that whole kind of I'm going to tell you everything about my life,
yes.
rather than
let's go sit at the bar and I'll just vent.
Yes, absolutely. So, 8 Grammys, is it still that, or have I miscounted?
No, it's 8.
Okay, right. Which one are you proudest of?
Oh, there's no particular one. The first Grammy that I ever won was such a surprise because I had no idea. I got a box in the mail one day from the Recording Academy, and I opened it up and it's a Grammy. What the hell? And it was for a recording that I played on with McCoy Tyner. But I had no idea that we were eligible for a Grammy. I'd played on a lot of recordings that had won Grammys, but we weren't eligible because I was just simply a sideman, just playing the bass part. And generally, you don't get a Grammy just for simply playing the bass on a particular album. But this was when I started learning about these rules.
Right.
So the recording was not solely credited to McCoy Tyner. It was credited to McCoy Tyner with Terrence Blanchard, Gary Bartz, Christian McBride, and Lewis Nash. And so since our names were on the album cover, we were eligible for a Grammy. Now, fast forward 4 years. I'm doing a recording with Dee Dee Bridgewater. And Dee Dee Bridgewater says, hey, I'm going to put you guys' names on the cover so you'll be eligible for Grammys. So it said Dee Dee Bridgewater with James Carter, Christian McBride, and Lewis Nash. Album comes out and it says, when it came time for the Grammys, it was Dee Dee Bridgewater.
Right.
And we were like, hey, what happened? Oh, that rule only applies to non-vocal albums. I'm like, really? All these stupid rules.
What's that track you do with Dee Dee?
It's your thing.
It's your thing. I think that is one of my favourite. I mean, I love her. I mean, she's just amazing. And I'm a big fan of China Moses, obviously her daughter.
Oh, China's the best.
Isn't she? But that song is and the way you play that bass, I mean, it's just... How many takes did that take?
I really wish more jazz musicians and jazz listeners were like Dee Dee.
Yeah.
Dee Dee Bridgewater is, she's one of my favorite people on the planet. She has so much spirit, so much joy. But when it comes time to be serious, she's very serious. So she's got the perfect balance.
Right.
And I have no idea how she stopped aging like about 40 years ago.
Yeah.
It's pretty, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
You'll like this story. So the first time I met China was in New York at this jazz club called the Jazz Standard. It's no longer there. And I'm sitting at the bar with China and the great drummer Kareem Riggins. And that commercial was brought to you by... So I'm sitting at this bar with China and Kareem Riggins, and I'm just staring at her. I'm going, So finally, after talking to the both of them for about a half an hour, I said, China, did anyone ever tell you look like Dee Dee Bridgewater? The whole bar just broke up laughing. I'm going, what's so funny?
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
She said, oh, that's my mother. I went,
yeah.
No wonder.
Yeah. No, absolutely. She's amazing, and she knows stuff about jazz, doesn't she, China?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And she obviously gets that from
her
parents,
sure.
Upbringing. Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. How are we doing for time? I don't want to take up too much of your time.
You got as much as you like.
Okay, well then I'm going to keep going.
Let's do some more.
Okay, I tell you one thing that I felt about this album was that expression, standing on the shoulders of giants. It feels like you're very gracious and grateful for the people who've gone before.
Oh, absolutely. That's why we're out here. These great musicians like Chick Corea, Ray Brown, Freddie Hubbard, Joe Henderson, McCoy Tyner, Roy Haynes, Tony Williams, Elvin Jones, George Benson, Betty Carter.
Jerry Mulligan.
Jerry, I never got to know him.
Okay,
but, he passed away, I
96?
think.
96, I think it was.
Was it 96?
I think so,
okay, yeah. Carmen McRae, Abby Lincoln, Max Roach. They are the reason we're out here. They gave us direct inspiration. Not only did we hear the records and we see the videos, and we saw the videos, but they came. This is the one of the most beautiful things about jazz. You go see a jazz concert, you have a 90% chance of meeting that person and speaking to them one-on-one. what are the chances you think you'll meet Taylor Swift if you go to see her perform?
Impossible.
Like, you can't just waltz up to the dressing room and be like, hey, hi, Taylor. What if I could ask you a couple of questions about songwriting? But like, if you go, like, I would say probably the most famous, I don't know, Herbie Hancock.
Yeah.
You go see Herbie Hancock perform somewhere, even in a very large venue, you still have a 50% shot of actually shaking his hand and saying, Mr. Hancock, can you tell me something about, how you voice, a particular chord? And so growing up in Philadelphia, I got a chance to meet all of these great, great jazz legends. And they would take time out of their busy schedule to talk to us. And I never forgot that.
Right.
And that gave us direct inspiration to become better jazz musicians. I could listen to Ron Carter on a record, and then when Ron Carter came to Philadelphia to do some educational outreach, I took a 1-hour lesson with him.
Wow. That must have been amazing.
I was shaking in my boots. It was like, that's Ron Carter. Mm-hmm. He's right in front of me. What?
Yeah.
Actually, it was Ron Carter and Milt Hinton.
Wow.
Now, how's that for bass royalty?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I've dedicated myself to becoming the best musician I can be. And that's also why I'm dedicated to jazz education.
Well, that was my next question. Yeah. So you're standing on the shoulders of giants, but you're also helping up the
That's
next
the only
generation.
way this music lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people like Art Blakey, whose mission in life was, hey, you have a short period in my band because I got some other young musicians whose time it will be to get them out there. Betty Carter was the same way. Ray Brown was the same way. Abby Lincoln was the same way. So I think it's important to do that.
Yeah. You say there's always room for growth, and do you apply that to, obviously you apply it to your music. Do you apply it to other areas of your life?
Sure. I think most people who are strong in certain areas are weak in others. So I think it's very important that you have self-awareness, self-consciousness, really focus on your weaknesses and try to make sure your strengths stay strong. Don't take anything for granted.
That's, it's true, isn't it? I mean, I'm nearly 10 years older than you, but you kind of get to that point where you realise that you've got to find your strengths and then build on those, build all the time.
I've tried very hard. I think I failed miserably, but I've never wanted to be one of those kind of people that are very smart. They got all of the answers, but they don't actually do anything. Like they have a lot of opinions. They have a lot of assertions on how things should be done, but they don't actually do anything.
Right.
They just sit and watch the news, and they get on Twitter and voice their opinions and think they should be patted on the back for that.
Right.
As opposed to people who actually write letters to their Congress people, or who get out there and protest, or who actually do the hard work of researching a particular topic so they actually know what they're talking about.
Right, yeah. Because you, tell me about the movement Revisited.
Yes.
That's exactly that, isn't it? That's actually putting yourself out there and finding out about it. And
well, when I was a kid, my grandmother used to save a lot of old magazines, and my mother and I would tease her because a lot of these magazines were, some of them had water damage, they were very dusty. We were like, Grandma, why are you saving these? Throw them away, there's something in there I want to see. Like, it says 1966.
Yeah.
You haven't read it in 20 years? So, but those magazines, which were mostly Ebony and Jet magazines, which were like the chronicles for the black community in 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, there's a lot of history in those magazines. So I would look at these magazines and I started seeing these pictures and news articles, and it became fascinating to me. Absolutely fascinating. Like, I love looking at old magazines. Like, look at what was fashionable, like in 1964. Look at what the new cars were in 1968. So look at the what TV shows were hot at that time. So I got lost in these old magazines, and obviously in the 60s, during both the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, there were so many news articles that were very, very important to the black community at that time. So I started learning about these names and started learning about these causes and these things that were going on. So 4 people that really stood out to me as a kid, obviously, was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I mean, he was obviously one of the most influential people of any type of culture anywhere in the world. Muhammad Ali, even though he was a world-class prize fighter, he was much more than that, we all know. And then Malcolm X and Rosa Parks became very important to me as well. I got to meet Rosa Parks.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 15 years old, and to think that a person so quiet and so almost demure, like, could do something so powerful, and that level of impact for someone who was not very vocal, because we like people who go out on the limb and, they challenge people and they have a loud mouth. They're unafraid to speak their mind. All she did was not get up,
Yeah.
She didn't, she didn't try to cause a scene. She didn't stand up and scold the bus driver. She says, "No, I'm very tired. I'm sorry. I don't want to get up." And look what happened. And for me, that tiny act set off a firestorm. It set off a firestorm. She gets arrested, and the community rallies around her by saying, "Let's not march, let's not picket, we're not going to ride that bus. Nobody from the black community is going to take public transportation." And that brought that public transportation company to its knees.
Yeah.
Because then they realized that most of their riders were people from the black community. And I think that went on for like over a year. Finally they were like, "We're sorry, please get back on the bus." And they're like, not unless you make some changes. And so that level, and how that started, that was very impactful for me.
Yeah, and it is about the quiet people who can make a difference.
Yeah, and that's why Rosa Parks always became very important to me. And Malcolm X, there was something very powerful for me when he was pushed out of the Nation of Islam, because the Nation of Islam was very much the most radical group at that time, before the Black Panthers. And Malcolm X being the chief spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, when they pushed him out, and he had to discover life on his own terms. When he went to Mecca and started to meet all of these people from different areas of life, and he came to this conclusion that everything he had been taught from the Nation of Islam was inaccurate.
Right.
I mean, like, that was so powerful to me, because he thought, I'm not saying racism doesn't exist. It most certainly does exist. But I no longer feel that racism is exclusive to one race,
Right.
There are people from all walks of life who experience the same thing that we black people in America experience, but, just in different ways. We all need to come together,
Yeah.
And that was very, very powerful for me. And of course, once he went public and said, hey, everything I learned from the Nation of Islam was inaccurate, they killed him.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You will not derail our movement, and...
No, that's right. Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it, that you, for him and then for you to sort of find out about, researching stuff and actually finding out what you're talking about before you start talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm finding, I interviewed a guy on last Monday from Jerusalem.
Mm-hmm.
That was so moving because he was living through all of this stuff that's going on. And, he said something really interesting. He said, there's no resolution to this, just as
right.
There's no resolution in music. There's no point at which anyone's going to go, we've sorted this, we've done this, we've played all the music we can ever play, nor have we sorted out the Israel-Palestine thing. There is no resolution. And once you get that in your head, it's just, all we can do then is be kind to each other along the way. Was
this an interview, like an official interview?
Yeah.
Where can I hear it?
On my podcast, on the Harmonious World podcast. It was the one from last week.
I'm going to find that.
Yeah, I'll make sure you can. So yeah, because it's really interesting. And it was funny at the time, but it wasn't funny at the time, it's funny now. He said to me at the beginning of this interview, he said, just to warn you that if at any point the air raid alarms go off, I'll have to go and take my kids into the shelter. I was like, well, obviously you've got to do that.
Right.
And so in the middle of the interview, suddenly there was silence. He literally was in the middle of a sentence and then it stopped. And you can imagine, all I was thinking was, well, what's happened to him?
Yeah.
So I was trying to find my emails to find out who had got me in touch with him and to find out what had happened and everything. And he came back on, he said, oh yeah, my phone ran out of battery. And it was like...
Scared you to death,
Scared me to death. So it was just, and we were both laughing about it, but it was just that kind of, how do you live like that?
Yeah.
So... So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was the music business. Like how involved do you get in the managing of your musical output and your performances and that sort of thing?
In terms of like booking or
overall? Just overall, do you just have people that sort everything or do you
yes, but you still personally have to go through that stuff as thoroughly as you can.
Yeah.
And you hire people who you trust, who are reputable, but you still can't just blindly have your team do things. You still have to check things out. I have been in enough situations where I've gotten unpleasant surprises.
Yeah. To
the point where, things will, if you don't keep an eye on things that are going on around you, something will happen that will make you keep your eye on what's going on around you in the future.
Right, because I can imagine there would be times when somebody would ask you to play, mm-hmm. and it might be somewhere that you don't want to play, or you don't, to an audience that you don't want to, or there's a choice of things and you want to have that choice.
Well, that's not the hard part. The hard part is when someone doesn't send your money on time,
okay.
you know,
Yeah.
or there's some stipulation on the contract that someone missed,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
You know, those types of things. You know, when you get a letter from the Internal Revenue Service saying, "Hey, you owe X amount," I'm going, what were you talking about? I paid my taxes that year,
right.
you know.
Yeah.
And then you call someone, they're like, "Oh, you know."
Yeah.
Like, no. We can't have any you knows.
No, that's right.
That just slipped our mind.
Yeah.
You know, so you gotta stay on top of it as best as you can.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So so what's next? So you're coming to the end of this tour.
Mm-hmm.
So now, and so apart from maybe having a rest.
No rest. No rest for me.
Okay.
We go back to the United States later this week. We have about 5 days off, and then we start a run of domestic shows. We play at Atlanta, Rockport, Massachusetts, Ridgefield, Connecticut, and then we go to Mexico for 2 concerts. And we're looking forward to that. I haven't been to Mexico in a very long time.
Right.
I think 2009 might have been the last time I was there. And we're going to Mexico City and Guadalajara.
Okay. Oh, well, that would be nice.
And then in November, I have my duties in Newark at New Jersey Performing Arts Center for the James Moody Jazz Festival. And then my annual 2-week residency at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah. And you taking these guys with you?
Actually, I'm not playing with them this time. For the first time in what year is this?
So first time
in 7 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to be playing with Inside Straight, my quintet, because that's the only gig we will have done together this year. Right. They're very upset at me. We thought we were the most important band in your career. Like, oh, stop it. And I'm not quite sure what will be the first band. It's looking like it'll be the Ray Brown tribute trio with myself, Benny Green, and Greg Hutchinson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, that'd be nice. And 2 weeks in one place.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes, and close to home.
Yeah. Absolutely. Very good. Okay. I think we're done. Thank you so much.
What a pleasure.
It's been amazing. It's been really good.
Now I'm serious about tomorrow.
I can't bring my baritone.
Why not?
Well, okay, then I will.
Just play blues.
Yeah.
Blues and B flat.
Oh, cool. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I actually think I might have a couple of friends sit in.
Okay. Well, then let's all do it. That'd be good.
I feel bad that all my piano player friends, when they want to come sit in, I'm like, sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't have you guys in mind when I started this band.
No, absolutely. Jolly good. Well, thank you. It's been really a real pleasure to meet you.
Wow,
really
the
good.
pleasure's all mine.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation with Christian McBride. It was so much fun at the time, and actually it's been great listening back to it. There wasn't too much editing to do either. I left in some of the clanking of coffee cups, which I think adds to the ambience. But honestly, I can't thank Christian enough for giving me so generously of his time when he was in London back in October. And in fact, I did take my baritone down to Ronnie Scott's, but the moment just wasn't right. But maybe there'll be a time when I get to the States or Christian comes back to the UK and we do get to play together, which would be amazing. I'd love to hear my baritone and his bass playing together. So thanks again to Joe English for this theme tune for Harmonious World, and I hope you enjoyed listening to this conversation with Christian McBride. Have a very, very harmonious week. Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Harmonious World. My name is Hilary Seabrook, and it's a great delight to bring this series of discussions with musicians and composers and writers and all sorts of people to you. Obviously, there's no point in having a podcast if people aren't listening, and I'm very grateful to my listeners for doing so. Thanks also to Joe English for composing and performing this new theme tune. So wherever you get your podcast, you can leave a review. You can share this with your friends and family, either as a link or on social media and that sort of thing. I'd be really grateful for that. Don't forget that you can subscribe now. There's a link wherever you get your podcasts. So have a great week, and please remember why I started this, which is just to try and make the world a little more harmonious. Thanks for listening to Harmonious World.